The tension at the dinner table was palpable. Marcus Lawrence sat at the head, fork suspended midway to his mouth, eyes darting between his wife Vanessa and his 16-year-old daughter Emma. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Lily, his 12-year-old, stared down at her plate, pushing peas around in small circles. So, Vanessa finally broke the silence, her voice carrying a brittle edge. I booked our anniversary trip to Cabo. We leave next Friday. Emma's head snapped up. But Dad, that's my dance recital. The one I've been practicing for all year. You promised you'd be there. Marcus felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. These moments have been happening more frequently, these impossible choices between his daughters and his wife of 2 years. I thought we discussed this, Marcus said carefully to Vanessa. Emma's recital has been on the calendar for months. Vanessa's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. Well, opportunities change. The resort had a cancellation, and I was able to get us that ocean view suite you loved in the brochure. She turned to Emma. I'm sure someone can record it for your father to watch later. Emma's eyes welled with tears. It's not the same, she whispered, then pushed away from the table and fled upstairs. Lily looked up, her young face serious beyond her years. Mom would have been there, she said quietly, then followed her sister. The words hung in the air between Marcus and Vanessa like a physical presence. The ghost of Rebecca, his first wife, the mother of his children who had succumbed to cancer 4 years earlier, seemed to sit in the empty chair at the table. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I can't compete with a saint, Marcus, and I'm tired of trying. As Marcus watched his wife leave the room, he felt a familiar tearing sensation as if his heart were being pulled in opposite directions. He knew a reckoning was coming. The delicate balance he'd been trying to maintain was failing, and soon he would have to make a choice that would change everything. What he couldn't possibly know was exactly how that choice would transform all their lives in ways none of them could have imagined. Marcus Lawrence had never envisioned himself as a single father. When he met Rebecca in college, their future seemed written in stone: successful careers, a beautiful home, and a family they would raise together. For 13 years, that dream had been reality. Rebecca's diagnosis had shattered everything, leaving Marcus alone with 2 grieving daughters at 37. For 2 years, he'd focused solely on Emma and Lily, helping them navigate their grief while managing his own. Emma, who had been 14 when her mother died, had retreated into dance, finding in movement what she couldn't express in words. Lily, only 8 at the time, had become quiet and watchful, as if afraid that by making too much noise, she might lose her father too. When Marcus met Vanessa at a work function, the attraction had been unexpected. She was vibrant, confident, and brought laughter back into his life. Their whirlwind romance had culminated in marriage after just 10 months, perhaps too quickly, as his mother had gently suggested. She's beautiful, Marcus said to Emma as they looked through their wedding photos. Don't you think? Emma had nodded, but her eyes remained guarded. She's not Mom. No one could ever replace your mother, Marcus had assured her, pulling her close. But don't you think Mom would want us to be happy again? Emma had leaned into his embrace. I guess. Just don't forget about us, okay? Never, Marcus had promised. You and Lily are my heart. Initially, Vanessa had tried. She'd attended Lily's science fairs and Emma's dance practices. She'd attempted family game nights and Sunday pancake breakfast traditions Rebecca had started. But as months passed, the strain became evident. Vanessa had no children of her own and had built her life around her career as an interior designer. The constant demands of 2 grieving girls tested her patience. I feel like I'm living in Rebecca's shadow, Vanessa confessed one night, 6 months into their marriage. The girls compare everything I do to what she would have done. And sometimes, Marcus, I think you do too. Marcus had held her close. Give them time. They're still healing. But time seemed to be making things worse, not better. Vanessa began scheduling more client meetings in the evenings when family dinners were supposed to happen. She suggested they needed couple time on weekends that coincided with the girls' activities. The push and pull grew more pronounced. Emma, now 16, had blossomed into a talented dancer with dreams of pursuing dance professionally. Her instructors praised her dedication and raw emotional expressiveness. Dance had become her lifeline, her connection to her mother, who had been a dancer in her youth. Lily, at 12, was developing her mother's quiet intelligence and her father's steady resolve. She watched the growing tension between her father and stepmother with eyes that missed nothing. While Emma's resistance to Vanessa was overt, Lily's was subtler, withdrawn compliance that never transformed into genuine acceptance. Vanessa Gordon Lawrence had come into the marriage with her own baggage. The youngest of 3 children, she had grown up competing for attention. Her successful career had been built on determination and an unwillingness to be overlooked. She had fallen in love with Marcus's quiet strength and his devotion to his daughters. But that same devotion, when not equally directed at her, triggered old insecurities. "I just want to be your priority sometimes," she told Marcus during one of their increasingly frequent arguments. Is that so wrong? In truth, Marcus didn't know what was right anymore. His love for Vanessa was real, but the promises he'd made to Rebecca on her deathbed to always put their daughters first weighed heavily on him. The balancing act was becoming impossible to maintain. The first major confrontation happened 3 months before the anniversary trip, when Vanessa had planned a weekend getaway to coincide with Emma's regional dance competition. "You know how important this is to her," Marcus had said, his voice strained. "She's worked all year for this opportunity." Vanessa had sighed dramatically. "It's always about the girls, isn't it? When is it ever about us?" "About me? That's not fair," Marcus had countered. "Last month we went to that design conference in Chicago. I arranged for my mother to stay with the girls, so I could be there for your keynote speech." "That was different," Vanessa insisted. "That was my career." "And this is Emma's future," Marcus replied firmly. This competition could lead to scholarship opportunities. Vanessa had relented that time, but the pattern continued. Small conflicts escalated into larger ones. When Lily caught the flu and Marcus stayed home to care for her, instead of attending Vanessa's company dinner, the silence between them lasted 3 days. When Marcus used money from their joint vacation fund to pay for Emma's summer dance intensive, Vanessa had thrown her hands up in exasperation. "When does it end, Marcus?" "When they're in college. When they're married with their own kids. Well, I always come second." The question haunted Marcus because he didn't have an answer. His daughters would always be his responsibility, his priority. But he had also made vows to Vanessa, promises of partnership and shared lives. The anniversary trip versus dance recital conflict had been brewing for weeks. Emma's contemporary solo was the culmination of months of work with her instructor. She would be performing a piece choreographed in memory of her mother, set to Rebecca's favorite song. The emotional significance wasn't lost on anyone except perhaps Vanessa, who saw only another example of Rebecca's continued presence in their lives. "You don't understand." Emma had pleaded with her father the morning after the tense dinner. "This isn't just any recital. This is my tribute to Mom. I've been working on it for months. How can you even consider missing it?" Marcus had hugged his daughter tightly. "I won't miss it, I promise." But that promise set off the inevitable confrontation with Vanessa. "You didn't even discuss it with me before making that decision," Vanessa said, her voice dangerously calm as they faced off in their bedroom. "You just unilaterally decided that our anniversary isn't important." "That's not what I did," Marcus protested. "The anniversary is important, but can't we celebrate another weekend? Emma's recital is a one-time event. There will always be another recital, another competition, another school event," Vanessa countered. "Where does it end, Marcus? When do I get to be your priority?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "You are a priority, but they're my daughters. They've already lost one parent. I can't let them down." "And what about letting me down?" Vanessa's voice cracked slightly. "I've tried, Marcus. God knows I've tried to be understanding about your devotion to them. But I'm your wife. Doesn't that count for anything?" The question hung between them, unanswered. That night, Marcus lay awake, Vanessa sleeping or pretending to sleep beside him. He thought about Rebecca and the promises he'd made to her. He remembered the devastation on his daughters' faces at her funeral, and his vow that they would never feel abandoned again. But he also thought about Vanessa and the life they were trying to build together. Was it possible to honor both commitments? Or was he being forced to choose? The morning of the decision, arrived with a heavy silence. Vanessa sat across from Marcus at the breakfast table, her coffee untouched, her expression composed but determined. The girls had already left for school, leaving them alone for this conversation. "I need to know where I stand, Marcus," Vanessa said quietly. "I've been patient. I've tried to understand. But I can't keep living like this, feeling like I'm always competing with your past and never winning." Marcus reached across the table for her hand, but she pulled away slightly. "It's not a competition, Vanessa, isn't it?" Her laugh was hollow. "Because it feels like one and I'm always losing." She took a deep breath. "I've changed the reservations for our trip. We can still go, but I need you to really choose what matters most to you right now." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "You're asking me to choose between my daughters and my wife." "No." Vanessa's eyes were clear and direct. "I'm asking you to choose between always putting them first and sometimes putting me first. There's a difference." Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the backyard where the girls had grown up. The tire swing Rebecca had insisted on installing still hung from the old oak tree. Emma had outgrown it years ago, but Lily still used it occasionally, especially when she was upset or thinking about her mother. "If I miss Emma's recital, I'll break a promise to my daughter," he said finally. "A daughter who's working through her grief by dancing a tribute to her mother. And if you miss our anniversary trip, you'll break a promise to your wife," Vanessa replied, her voice steady. "A wife who's been trying to find her place in this family for 2 years." The weight of the decision pressed down on Marcus. Both choices felt impossible. Both would hurt someone he loved. "I need you to decide today," Vanessa said, standing up. "I'll be working from home this afternoon. Let me know what you decide by dinner." She paused at the door. "And Marcus, this isn't just about the trip. This is about our future together." Alone in the kitchen, Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at the background image, a photo of him with Emma and Lily from last Christmas. Their smiles were genuine, but there was still that shadow in their eyes, the grief that never fully disappeared. He thought about Emma's recital, how she had poured all her feelings about her mother into her choreography. He thought about Lily, watching from the audience, needing to see that her family, what remained of it, was still intact. Then he thought about Vanessa, waiting for a sign that she truly belonged in his life. The woman who had brought light back into his darkness. The woman he had promised to cherish and prioritize. By the time he arrived at his office, Marcus knew what he had to do. The decision wasn't about a trip versus a recital. It was about the promises he'd made and the ones he could keep without breaking others. That evening, Marcus returned home with a small wrap box for Vanessa, and it was a pair of earrings she had admired months ago, along with a card. "I can't go to Cabo," he said simply when she opened it. "Emma needs me at her recital. I hope you understand, but I'll understand if you don't." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, but her expression hardened. "Then I guess we both know where we stand," she said quietly. She placed the box on the coffee table. "I'll be staying at Jen's for a while. I need some time to think about whether I can live with being your second choice." As she packed the bag, Marcus felt a cold emptiness settling in his stomach. He had made his choice the only choice he felt he could make, but the cost was becoming clear. When the front door closed behind Vanessa, the sound seemed to echo through the house like a final judgment. News of Vanessa's departure spread through the family like a shockwave. Though Marcus tried to shield his daughters from the full impact, they were perceptive enough to understand the gravity of the situation. "She left because of my recital, didn't she?" Emma asked that night, standing in the doorway of Marcus's home office, her arms wrapped around herself. Marcus looked up from his untouched work emails. "No, Em. She left because we have different expectations about our relationship right now. This isn't your fault. But if I hadn't pushed so hard about you coming to my recital—" "Stop," Marcus interrupted gently. "This isn't about one recital. This is about adults making adult decisions. None of this is on you or Lily." But that wasn't entirely true, and they all knew it. The underlying tensions had been building, but the recital had become the breaking point, the tangible symbol of Marcus's priorities. Lily was less vocal about her feelings, but Marcus found her sitting on the tire swing the next day, slowly turning in circles. "Do you think she'll come back?" Lily asked when Marcus approached. "I don't know," he answered honestly. I hope so, but right now she needs some space to think. Lily nodded, her eyes focused on the ground. Mom wouldn't have left. The simple statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. No, she wouldn't have, he agreed. But that's because she was your mother. Vanessa is in a different position. A harder one, Lily said thoughtfully. I guess we never really gave her a chance to be anything but second best. Marcus was stunned by his younger daughter's insight. That's very perceptive, Lil. She shrugged. I pay attention. The following days established a new routine. Marcus worked from home when possible, ensuring he was available for Lily after school and for Emma's increased practice schedule as her recital approached. Friends called to check in, offering support and, occasionally, unsolicited advice. Marcus's mother, Janet, visited for Sunday dinner, her concern evident. Have you talked to her? She asked while helping him clean up after the meal. We've texted, Marcus replied. She's asked for space, and I'm trying to respect that. Janet nodded slowly. You know I love those girls more than anything, Marcus. But marriage requires compromise. From both sides. She was asking me to choose her over them. Marcus protested. Was she... Janet raised an eyebrow. Or was she asking for equal consideration? There's a difference. The question lingered with Marcus long after his mother left. Had he been fair to Vanessa? Had he ever really given her an equal place in the family? Or had he expected her to fit into the spaces left by Rebecca without complaint? At the dance studio, Marcus watched Emma practice her solo routine, her movements fluid and filled with emotion. Her instructor, Ms. Chun, approached him afterward. She's channeling a lot into this piece, Ms. Chun observed. It's beautiful, but I'm concerned about the toll it's taking on her. What do you mean? Marcus asked. Dance should be an expression of emotion, but not a substitute for dealing with it. Ms. Chun explained. Sometimes I worry that Emma is using dance to avoid addressing her feelings about her mother's death. And now, with your wife leaving. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll talk to her. But conversations with Emma had become increasingly difficult. She oscillated between throwing herself into dance practice and withdrawing completely. One night, he found her sobbing in her room, hugging the last birthday gift Rebecca had given her, a music box with a dancing figurine inside. I miss her so much, Emma cried when Marcus sat beside her. And now Vanessa's gone too, and it's my fault. No, sweetheart. Marcus pulled her close. This isn't your fault. Adults make choices, and sometimes those choices have consequences we don't expect. But you chose us over her, Emma persisted, and now everyone's unhappy. Marcus had no answer for that, because in many ways his daughter was right. The night before Emma's recital, Marcus found himself alone in the kitchen, staring at the calendar on the refrigerator. The date of Emma's performance was circled in red. Beside it, in smaller writing, was a note. Anniversary, Cabo. He hadn't erased it, perhaps out of some sense that doing so would be too final. His phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Good luck to Emma tomorrow. I hope the recital goes well. The simple message brought an unexpected lump to his throat. Despite everything, she still cared enough to reach out. He typed a response. Thank you. She's nervous but ready. How are you doing? There was a long pause before a reply came. Taking it day by day. Thinking a lot about us. As he considered how to respond, Marcus heard a noise from upstairs, muffled sobbing. He found Emma sitting on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by photos of Rebecca and pages of notes about her dance routine. He said softly, kneeling beside her. What's going on? I can't do it, she said through tears. I can't perform tomorrow. Why not? You've been working so hard. Emma looked up, her face streaked with tears. Because every time I dance this routine, I feel like I'm keeping Mom alive somehow. Like I'm not letting her go. And now I've done the same thing with Vanessa. I've pushed her away because I'm afraid of losing Mom all over again. The insight from his teenage daughter struck Marcus deeply. Emma, that's not. It is, she interrupted. I've been awful to Vanessa from the beginning. I've compared her to Mom. I've made her feel unwelcome in our house. And you've let me because you feel guilty about Mom dying. Marcus sat back, stunned by his daughter's perception. "I never meant to make you feel responsible for my choices." "But you did." Emma wiped her eyes. "You let me believe that I could keep you from having a life with Vanessa. And now she's gone and you're unhappy, and it's all because I couldn't let go." Marcus pulled his daughter into a hug. "Listen to me. Vanessa leaving is not your fault. The problems between us are adult problems that existed before this recital." "But the recital was the breaking point," Emma insisted. "And now you're missing your anniversary trip because of me." "I'm missing it because I made a choice," Marcus clarified. "And maybe it wasn't the right one." Emma pulled back, confused. "What do you mean?" Marcus sat beside his daughter on the floor, surrounded by memories of Rebecca. "I've been trying so hard to keep my promise to your mother, to put you girls first always, that I never gave Vanessa a real chance to be part of our family. I expected her to understand that you would always be my priority, without recognizing that in a marriage, priorities have to be shared." Emma was quiet for a moment. "So, what are you going to do?" Marcus looked at the dance notes scattered around them. "First, I'm going to watch my amazing daughter perform tomorrow. And then, I think it's time I had an honest conversation with my wife." For the first time in weeks, a genuine smile crossed Emma's face. "I think that's a good idea." As Marcus helped Emma gather her photos and notes, he felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in months. The choice wasn't between his daughters and his wife. It never had been. The real choice was between holding on to the past and moving toward the future. The recital hall buzzed with excitement as families filed in, programs in hand. Marcus and Lily found their seats near the front, reserved weeks in advance. The absence of the third ticket, Vanessa's, was a tangible reminder of the current state of their family. "Do you think Emma will be okay?" Lily asked, scanning the program. She seemed really nervous this morning. "She'll be fine once she starts dancing," Marcus assured her, though his own stomach was in knots. Not just for Emma's performance, but for the conversation he planned to have with Vanessa afterward. The lights dimmed, and the first performers took the stage. As the program progressed, Marcus found himself checking his phone, not for messages, but for the time. Emma's solo was scheduled near the end, the feature performance of the evening. When her name was announced, the audience applauded politely. But as Emma took center stage, something unexpected happened. She spoke into the microphone set up at the edge of the stage. "I've changed my piece a little," she announced, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "This was originally choreographed as a tribute to my mother, who I lost 4 years ago. But tonight, I'd like to dedicate it to all the people who help us move forward after loss, even when we make it difficult for them." The music began not the melancholy piece she had practiced for months, but something more hopeful, with an underlying current of determination. As Emma danced, Marcus saw elements of her original choreography blended with new movements that suggested growth, acceptance, and possibility. Beside him, Lily wiped away tears. "She changed it," she whispered. "It's about moving on now, not just remembering." When Emma finished, the audience erupted into applause. Marcus found himself on his feet, clapping until his hands hurt, his heart swelling with pride and love for his daughter's courage not just in performing, but in recognizing her own role in their family struggles. After the recital, as families gathered in the lobby with flowers and congratulations, Marcus spotted a familiar figure standing near the exit. Vanessa, elegant in a simple blue dress, holding a bouquet of Lily's, Emma's favorite flowers. "You came?" Marcus said, approaching her while the girls were surrounded by friends. "I couldn't miss it," Vanessa replied, her expression guarded but not cold. "Despite everything, I care about Emma's accomplishments." Marcus nodded, emotions threatening to overtake him. "Can we talk? Not here, but maybe tomorrow? There are things I need to say to you." Vanessa hesitated before nodding. "I'll meet you at the coffee shop by the park. 10 o'clock. Before Marcus could respond, Emma spotted Vanessa and broke away from her friends, running toward her stepmother with an openness that had been absent for 2 years. "You came," Emma exclaimed, accepting the flowers with genuine pleasure. "Did you see? I changed my routine." "I did see." Vanessa smiled warmly. "It was beautiful, Emma. Truly moving." "I wanted to show that we can honor the past without being stuck in it," Emma explained, the maturity in her voice surprising both adults. That's what Mom would have wanted for all of us. The coffee shop meeting the next morning began awkwardly, both Marcus and Vanessa careful with their words, measuring their expressions. But as Marcus explained his realizations of the past weeks, the atmosphere gradually shifted. "I've been unfair to you," he admitted. "I've expected you to understand my priorities without being willing to make you one of them. That's not partnership." Vanessa's eyes glistened. "And I've been impatient. I came into an established family and expected to find my place immediately, without recognizing how difficult that transition is for everyone." "Where do we go from here?" Marcus asked, reaching for her hand across the table. "I don't know," Vanessa answered honestly. "But Emma's dance last night made me think that maybe we've all been focusing too much on what was lost instead of what could be built." By the time they left the coffee shop 3 hours later, no definitive decisions had been made, but something had shifted, a willingness to try again with clearer understanding and more realistic expectations. Hashtag conclusion. 6 months later, the Lawrence family gathered in the backyard for a barbecue. The old tire swing still hung from the oak tree, but beside it now stood a garden bench Vanessa had designed a place for conversation and connection. The path to their new normal hadn't been smooth. There had been counseling sessions, both as a couple and as a family. There had been difficult conversations about boundaries, expectations, and the reality of blending lives marked by both love and loss. Vanessa had returned home gradually, first for dinners, then overnight visits, and finally moving back in after 3 months of intentional rebuilding. The guest room had become her home office, giving her space within the family home that was distinctly hers. The girls had changed too. Emma, now preparing college applications for dance programs, had developed a genuine friendship with Vanessa based on mutual respect rather than competing loyalties. Lily had found in her stepmother a different kind of maternal figure, not a replacement for Rebecca, but a valuable addition to her life. As Marcus watched his family, now Vanessa and Emma, discussing costume designs for an upcoming performance, Lily setting the table while chatting about her science project, he realized that the choice he had made 6 months ago hadn't been wrong. It had been incomplete. "Penny for your thoughts," Vanessa said, coming to stand beside him as he tended the grill. "Just thinking about how far we've come," he replied, putting an arm around her waist. "About how choosing my daughters didn't have to mean losing my wife. And choosing your wife doesn't mean neglecting your daughters," Vanessa added, leaning into him. "It took all of us to figure that out." Later that evening, after the girls had gone inside, Marcus and Vanessa sat on the garden bench, watching the stars appear one by one. "I booked us a weekend at that bed and breakfast on the coast," Marcus said casually. "Just the two of us." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "What about the girls?" "They're spending the weekend with my mother. It was their idea, actually. Emma said we needed some couple time." Vanessa laughed softly. "She's growing up." "We all are," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand. "Growing up, growing together." The choice Marcus had made hadn't been between his daughters and his wife. It had been a choice to prioritize honesty, communication, and the hard work of building a blended family. By refusing to abandon his daughters in their moment of need, he had ultimately created space for a stronger, more authentic relationship with Vanessa. He had chosen love in its most complex form, not the romantic idealism of new love or the protective devotion of a parent, but the messy, complicated reality of loving an entire family with all its history and hope for the future.